In Module 3, Lesson 2, we're going to look at real-world positive and negative numbers and their relationship to 0. In example 1, you'll need to read the situation silently and then complete the KWL chart, words I already know, words I want to know, and then the words I learned will be things that you'll add in as the lesson progresses. Next, we'll read example 1 again, and with a partner, you need to number the events in the story problem. Write the number above each sentence to show the order of the events, keeping in mind that the order may not be the order in which the events appear in the paragraph. For Tim's 13th birthday, he received $150 in cash from his mom. This was event 1. His dad took him to the bank to open a savings account. That was event 2. Tim gave the cash to the banker to deposit in the account. That was event 3. The banker credited Tim's new account $150 and gave Tim a receipt. That's event 4. 1 week later, Tim deposited another $25 that he had earned as allowance. Event 5. Next month, Tim asked his dad for permission to withdraw $35 to buy a new video game. That's event 6. And Tim's dad explained that the bank would charge $5 for each withdrawal from the savings account, and that each withdrawal and charge results in a debit to the account. And that is event 7. Next, we're going to write each individual description as an integer. And that integer would be either a positive or a negative number. And then you will model the integer on the number line using an appropriate scale. So when they open the bank account with $0, opening the bank account is a positive event, although 0 is neither positive nor negative. So to represent that, our integer would be 0. And when you draw your number line, you would want to locate 0 somewhere in the middle of your number line, since there were some events that were negative and some that were positive. Second event was $150 was deposited. A deposit is an increasing or a positive event that happens to your bank account. It increases your bank account. So that is a positive 150, and on your number line, you'll need to make equal intervals such that you can fit 150 on your number line. And keep in mind that when you number your number line in equal intervals, they do not have to be increasing or decreasing by 1. You could go by 5s or 10s or 20s or 25s. Whatever you are comfortable with, but each line must represent the same interval. As an example, I've created a number line with equal intervals, and I have decided to increase by 25 for each line. And so you'll notice when I move to the right of 0, I'm increasing by 25 each time. And I went up to 175. Decreasing or moving to the left from 0, I'm also decreasing by 25 each time. So I go from 0 to the left, negative 25, negative 50, negative 75. Your number line does not have to go by 25s, but it does have to go by equal intervals, and both sides of 0 must have the same interval. Moving on next To credit an account for $50 or for $150 is to increase 150. I want to point out that making the deposit and crediting the account are the same event. The deposit is what Tim is doing. He's physically taking the $150 and depositing it with the bank, giving it to the bank. The bank is crediting the account. So it is the same event, and it does not increase another 150. You are simply showing it in these two different ways because the vocabulary is new for you. The next event was to make a deposit of $25. Again, a deposit is a positive event. It increases your bank account. And in this case, now you will increase on your number line from the 150 that Tim initially had. He's making another deposit of $25, so that should increase then to 175, and you would draw a number line for each of these events. The next event, and these two events really are at the same time. So if you numbered the bank charge as 6 and the withdrawal as 7, that's fine, but we listed them as the withdrawal being 6 and the bank charge being 7. A bank charge is money taken away from your account. So that bank charge is -5. And from where you are on your number line, which should be at 175, you would need to then decrease by 5, which is just slightly below the 175. If you have numbered like I have by 25s, 170 or $5 less would be just below the 175 mark. It is not halfway between 150 and 175. And then we had the withdrawal of $35, which is also a negative event in your bank account. You're taking $35 out of your banking account. And so on your number line, if you were slightly below 175 after your bank charge, you would now have to go another 35 down. And 35 from 170 would be 135. And that would be close to halfway between 125 and 150. Continuing on with example 2, temperature is commonly measured using one of two scales, Celsius or Fahrenheit. In the United States, the Fahrenheit system continues to be the accepted standard for non-scientific use, but all other countries have adopted Celsius as the primary scale. The thermometer is showing how these two scales are related. On the right is the Celsius scale, and on the left is the Fahrenheit scale. And you should notice that 0 is in different locations depending on whether you are measuring in Celsius or Fahrenheit. Using that scale, the boiling point of water is 100 degrees Celsius. Where is 100 degrees Celsius located on the thermometer at the right? And you should notice when you inspect that 100 degrees Celsius is not on this thermometer, but it would be further above 0. So on the vertical number line, which a thermometer looks very much like, the position of the integer that represents 100 degrees Celsius would be 100 units above 0 on the number line. Continuing on, we're asked to write each temperature as an integer. So the temperature shown to the right, and the temperature is indicated by the mercury, the red, on the thermometer. The temperature shown in degrees Fahrenheit is 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So as an integer, we would write that as positive 100. Although we don't really have to have the positive sign if we're writing a positive number. We will write it in this example. The temperature shown in degrees Celsius, our closest our closest marked number is 30 degrees Celsius, and then it goes up to 40 degrees Celsius. However, we need to determine what kind of interval is between 30 and 40. So looking at 30, we then have 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 40-degree mark makes 5 marks in between 30 and 40. 30 and 40 are 10 units apart from each other. So if we take the number of lines that are between them and the difference between the two, which is 10, 10 divided by 5 would mean that each line represents an increment of 2 degrees. Now let's go back and identify what the actual temperature is. This is 30, 32, 34, 36, 38. So our temperature in degrees Celsius is 38. Next question, the freezing point of water in Celsius. Freezing point in water in Celsius, as they indicate here, is 0 degrees. And 0 is neither positive nor negative. And then question D, if someone tells you your body temperature is 98.6 degrees, what scale are they using? That would be the Fahrenheit scale. And we know that not just because the US uses Fahrenheit, but because when we look, and this is more important, when we look at this scale, 98.6 would be right about here on our number line, which is somewhere around 30, 38, 37 degrees Celsius. But more importantly, if it were degrees Celsius, 98.6 degrees Celsius, look back at question A. The boiling point of water is 100 degrees Celsius. If your body temperature were 98.6 degrees, would that not mean that your body is actually physically boiling if it were Celsius? And that is not possible, ladies and gentlemen. You would be dead. So please keep in mind when you answer these questions, it is more than just reading a thermometer or looking at a diagram. You need to use some common sense as well. And then the question, does the temperature 0 degrees mean the same thing on both scales? Hopefully we know by now that it certainly does not. 0 degrees Fahrenheit is much colder than 0 degrees Celsius. 0 degrees Celsius is the freezing point of water, which hopefully we all know as 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So those two temperatures are not the same. 0 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius are not the same. Looking at the vocabulary that we have been working on in this lesson, we want to indicate whether each of those words represents a positive or a negative number. So positive numbers, gain would be a positive number. A loss would be negative. Deposit, as we recall from our previous, is a positive. A credit, as we recall from our previous example, is a positive. A debit was negative. And we know that because if we look back at our paragraph from example 1, Tim's dad explained the bank would charge $5 and that each withdrawal and charge results in a debit to the account. So a debit in this situation is a negative. A charge is also a negative thing. It's something that you're going to have to pay. Below zero is a negative. Withdraw is also a negative because you're taking money away from the account. When you owe money, it is also a negative. And finally, to receive means to increase. Using that vocabulary, you're now going to write integers that represent each of the situations. If a company loses $345,000, that is a negative. If you earn $25 for dog sitting, that's a positive. And in this lesson, we're going to represent the positive numbers with a positive sign just so that we have the practice of thinking about the positives. If Jacob owes his dad $5, that's a negative. Temperature at the sun's surface is about 5,600 degrees Celsius. That's very hot, and it's a positive number. Temperature outside is 4 degrees below zero, and that's a negative number. A football player lost 10 yards when he was tackled is also a negative number. Next, you're going to describe a situation that can be modeled by the integer -15 and explain what 0 represents in the situation. For example, when we talked about temperature, 0 represented the place where your temperature either increased going up or decreased by the same intervals going down. 0 in our bank example was when the account was initially opened before any money was put in or taken out. So in your situation, make sure that you can say what 0 is and then explain the -15